Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Terrace Podcast. I am your host, Craig Fowler, back once again with a 6-game review of the Scottish Premiership weekend. Joining me to help me go through those 6 matches and what was a fairly decent weekend of football in the top flight, it is Tony Anderson. Tony, how's it going?
I'm well, mate. Well, I'm not really. That was a lie. But back once again with the Renegade Master. Here we go. I basically see none of the football, so I'm just going to listen to you. So I hope people enjoy. So basically it's like going to be the equivalent of you sort of like lending me the ball, and then I'll just play it back into you for you to go on and finish. I did go to the Hibs game, and I listened to the Rangers game on the radio because I was going through it at my mum's. Listened to it on the radio, got to my mum's, 88 minutes, 3-3. Then I managed to get the game on. And there was a lot of action even from then. So that was pretty good fun.
Yeah, we'll get to that first. So if there's anybody listening, especially if you don't listen too often, you're like, oh, what's the point of listening to this? One of the guys hasn't seen any of the football. Well, what we usually like to do on this podcast is that we like to balance up so that we do see all 6 games across the 3 of us. And I had quite a quiet weekend. I was out. I decided to have some drinks on Thursday. We recorded a podcast that will be out soon on Thursday, yours, and then my better half was off the next day, so she was having drinks. She was on a work night out, and then she was having some drinks in the house. So I decided, okay, do you know what? I'll do the same. And then on Friday, I also went out, but on Saturday and Sunday, I stayed in the house the entire time. I did nothing but pretty much watch football and read about football and edit football podcasts. So
we are fucking nerds, aren't we?
Yes, yeah, totally. So you've seen one game. I have not seen any of that. In fact, I've not even watched the highlights for that. I've seen the goals, but I've not watched any more highlights. But I have watched at least 45 minutes and the highlights from every single other game that took place. So we've got it covered.
I'm just here, so it's not weird.
Yeah, so I'm not just talking myself. And not covering Hibs at all, pretending it didn't happen.
There you go. I mean, it's getting to that stage. They never lose, so it's incredible.
Yeah, I'm trying. It's hard to not pretend it's not happening. Anyway,
games.
Let's get to something a bit. Well, I was going to say a bit rosier. I don't really like Rangers winning in stoppage time, but you have to say this was an incredible game of football, and we cannot start anywhere else in the game on Saturday evening. Dundee 3, Rangers 4. An incredible day of football.
Is it the game of the season?
I
think it probably is.
See, from start to finish, yes.
Yeah.
I do think there is an argument.
That's normally how I would judge games.
I do think there's an argument to be made that in years' time we will still remember Hibs 3, Aberdeen 3 more, which was still a good game until that point, but obviously nothing compared to what happened at the end of that match. But that was just something that you just don't really see at all. 3 goals in injury time as the game swings back and forth. This one could have had about 3 goals in injury time. It
just wouldn't stop.
It just wouldn't stop. It was just back and forth the entire game. So for those unaware, Dundee went into a 2-goal lead. Simon Murray and Joe Shaughnessy putting them in front. Joe Shaughnessy, own goal before half-time, brought Rangers back into it. Scott Tiffany then restored the 2-goal advantage, but Rangers came back again. Great strikes from James Tavernier and Tom Lawrence, setting up Cyriel Dessers to win it in injury time. And as we said, that doesn't tell the full story. There was chances for both teams. This game easily could have finished 6 each.
It just wouldn't stop. As I said, it was just constantly, there was no lull. For 90 minutes, there was not even a period where there was a lull. It was absolutely, like when I was listening on the radio, I was pissed off that I wasn't getting to sit and watch a game. And then we've got Cyriel Dessers, 12 shots on goal. It's sort of like that his performance epitomised his entire career. That's a great point. That was something I've actually got written down, because you can say that it summed him up this game more than any other. The only thing that the difference is that he got the big goal at the end to win it, which is often the issue with him, and that it's a great finish as well.
Yeah, and the issue with Dessers is that he doesn't come through in the big moments. That he does. There is undeniable that the guy gets chances. It's undeniable that he's got a great goal scored record. This was his 100th game for Rangers. He scored 45 times. He showed himself capable of great finishes. That's what you're talking about. Also, for early in the season when he scored that goal against Manchester United and then followed up with another ridiculous goal against Dundee United.
Oh, that was brilliant, man.
He does have it all in his locker, but often in the big...
Sometimes he just turns into Torres, like prime Fernando Torres. So occasionally that just... Like, was it last year at Betis? When I remember it was Joel Sked actually said that. Like, that is... the goal he scored against Betis last season did just look like Fernando Torres. It was like the classic Fernando Torres goal. And he's just such a fun player, man. He's just, I mean, he might do your head in, but I think it's like, for a striker, he's exactly the one you want. Just doesn't he seem to fucking arse himself that he missed so many chances. And it's like the one that he scored is probably one of the most difficult out of all the ones that he's starting to become like a scorer of great goals. That's starting to become his thing, which seems bizarre.
But also a great goal scorer, 45 and 100. But like I say, the problem is...
He could have had like 90.
Yes, aye. If he scored...
Even just been all right. He could have got...
if he had a better conversion rate, he wouldn't be at Rangers because he'd be scored 50 goals a season.
That was what he said.
Yeah, that's what he said. If I didn't have any gaps in my game, I wouldn't be here, which Rangers fans obviously didn't like to hear, but it's just basically a statement of fact.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that he hasn't done it in games against Celtic, I think is the main one, and probably some other big games Rangers have played in domestically that we're forgetting over the last couple of seasons. But he did come up in this one, and you said the stat earlier, 12 shots. I've got some comparisons with the rest of the top flight from this past weekend. So it was his 10th shot of the game which he scored with, which was an injury time. He still managed to have 2 more. So 12 shots in total was better than half the teams in the league this past weekend. And the 8 he had on target was no team by themselves had more than that, other than obviously the team he played for. And that 8 shots on target was more than, where have I got it here? Yep, more than Hearts, Killie, Motherwell, St Johnstone and Ross County combined. You had 7.
Cyriel Dessers, man. Don't leave. Don't let him go. I think we just keep him around forever.
Yeah, he's great fun. He does seem somebody that's quite easy to like. I said this on a pod with Rob earlier in the season, in that, you know, you missed Alfredo Morelos and that he felt like he wasn't replaced in terms of box office. This Dessers kind of has it away, but it's just a very different kind of box office. He also misses the chances, but like Morelos did, he doesn't have the petulant side. He's maybe not quite replaced it fully, but he's come in.
Not a complete idiot.
He doesn't come across as a complete idiot. But as time has gone on, he's became more likable, and he's just kind of seemed like, because you just know he's going to do something in a game. He's either going to miss a great chance or he's going to score a goal, and sometimes even a great goal, as you said. So he is becoming that. He's not quite Morelos levels of box office, but he's not far away. His
celebration was class. I thought like that, because it was like the style of the finish means that he's scoring and celebrating all in one movement, if you know what I mean. Because he just runs off. He just strokes it in. And then he's just away and doing the big run like that, and everyone's going absolutely wild. It was quite the moment, to be fair. Brilliant, man.
So as for the game itself, I felt that Rangers contributed to their own initial downfall, because as soon as the teams came out, I thought it was a mistake to continue with the 3 at the back. It has been working well, but you do have to sometimes be adaptable.
They just don't need to play 3 centre-halves. They don't. Yeah, simple as that.
Like, it's been working well recently. It's been working well in kind of bigger games for them. And Ferguson's shown the ability to be adaptable already by changing the system. And he should have changed it for this one because, I mean, firstly, with Sterling on one side of the back 3 and Balogun on the other, it just makes you hard to progress the ball because Sterling can't really pass it. You don't really trust him to do anything other than kind of battle and do the kind of basics and add a bit of energy to a side. He's not the type of player who's going to play 40-yard crossfield balls. He's not going to really progress it up with his feet. And Balogun can do a bit in terms of stepping out for the back and making the pass, but because he's on the left-hand side, it just makes it a bit harder for him.
That nullifies.
And in the first half, and also I think it takes away from Suter a bit by having him in the centre as opposed to on the right. And also the Rangers' left-hand side in that first half was just an absolute joke. Like, Balogun was terrible and Yilmaz was pish as well. It was comical how bad they were. Secondly, I think it was always going to be a bad matchup against that Dundee front 3 because you're having to push, well, you're not having to, but you're Rangers. You're naturally going to push up. You're naturally going to leave space in behind the wing backs, in behind the centre halves. And that Dundee front 3 is quick, dynamic. It's got a lot of running ability. It was just a bad matchup for the start. And consider the fact that Dundee played the front 3 against Dundee United, Barry Ferguson surely must have known, especially considering Rangers away from home this season, that United were going to stick with them. And I find it quite naive from him that he didn't change it up initially. However, to be fair to him, he did change it up to a 4 at the back of the second half, and they were still shite defensively. So maybe it's the personnel.
We've come to the conclusion that maybe they're shit.
Yeah.
But the Barry Ferguson, I enjoyed the celebrations as well when he tried to stay on his feet.
Yes.
And he was basically like he was ice skating. Every celebration with Barry Ferguson, something's happening and he doesn't look like he knows what he wants to do. It's like you're getting to the stage where you want a manager cam on Barry Ferguson because he's always up to something. And again, just like Dessers, let's just give Barry Ferguson a 3-year deal. Let's just get it done. Let's all have a laugh. It'll be fun. He's going to be an absolute riot with it the whole time. But they got out of jail. Let's be honest. I mean, they're the only team that's a perfect team in the entire league to go 3-1 down to. You know Dundee are going to be giving you multiple.
Yes.
How many goals have they conceded this season? 80 or something?
No. So far this season, they have conceded 67 goals in 31 games, which means they're on a pace to concede 82 goals. Now, because they're going to finish in the bottom 6 and not play Celtic or Rangers again, that's probably unlikely to happen, but they're still...
famous last word.
Yeah, certainly. But they're still... I mean, I still think they would concede about like 77, 78, which is wild enough by itself. But say they get to 82... that would be the most by any team in the top flight since Dunfermline in 2012. By contrast, Gretna in 2008 conceded 83.
Because it's so frustrating because Dundee have a good team. And they're good to watch and they score absolute shit loads of goals. But they just completely kill themselves. But the two teams there, like looking back, when you really think about it, those two teams together, it shouldn't really be a surprise that they put on a game like that.
Yeah, totally. And for Dundee, it's just, like you say, it's been the case most seasons as well, because last season they conceded 68 goals, which was the most for a team that finished in the top half since 2003. Again, Dunfermline. And they've made it work. I think they've scored the third most goals in the league this season. Tony Docherty certainly said that after the game. And that's could have been the thing the entire time. But Tony Docherty he's done some nice things with that Dundee team, but it just doesn't look like he knows how to coach a defence.
The thing is, they scored the third most goals. If they were just bad defensively, they'd probably be fourth. If they were just normal bad.
Scottish football bad.
Like maybe they conceded 45 goals, which still isn't great. Like over the season, they would be like third.
And also, it's got to be it's a big concern for two reasons. One, they're in 11th place right now. I mean, we'll get to Killie soon enough, and that should give them hope for staying up without having to navigate the playoffs. But if they do end up in a playoff, when you have a defence that bad and is capable of faltering bits at a moment's notice, you have to be nervous about a playoff final. You're going to be nervous about a playoff final anyway, obviously. That's a bit redundant to say. But I would still back... I think everybody would look at the teams in the bottom end of the Premiership, other than St Johnstone, and then looking at the teams fighting it out for below Falkirk for the Championship. That you would fancy the Premiership side. You would fancy Killie. You would fancy Ross County. You would fancy Aberdeen. You should fancy Dundee. But I'd be most nervous about Dundee just because that defence could just go to pot so quickly that just one half over the two legs could completely fuck them.
Aye, absolutely. And like a team like Livingston, who a manager like that, for example, who are really, really streetwise, they could really take advantage of that. And then they'd be capable of shutting up shop for an hour after that, once they get 2 goals ahead and they're gifted. So I totally agree with you. They look the most like flammable for that situation. And
just to wind up Dundee fans again, Tony Docherty, first half, he has the 4-3-3. Second half, he can't help himself. He switches back to the 3 at the back.
He loves it, man.
He goes 3-4-3. He's like an addict. He just really can't quit it. He just can't quit it. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate slightly, and I think I know why he did it. In the first half, Cyriel Dessers had the same chance 3 times, which was that he found space down the side of a centre-back, between the centre-back and the full-back. And that was something that we'll get to very soon, which Killie struggled in their game against Mirren, and they played a back 4 as well. So I think he's thinking, right, Dessers has missed those chances, but we're lucky he has. Carson's made a couple of good saves, but generally he's kind of struck it in the vicinity where Carson should and can save it. So let's get another body back there to make it harder. And Dessers, other than on the counter-attack, which is a little bit different, didn't quite have those opportunities. However, if you look at goals 2 and 3, they're both very similar in that it's a player finding room in a central area, 20 to 25 yards for goal, with the time and space to have a shot. And if you're playing most teams in the league, you're probably fine because the players are very good.
Yeah,
but James Tavernier can strike a ball. Tom Lawrence is very good.
That's all Tom Lawrence can do.
Yeah, but he can strike a ball.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of similar where if you had a defensive midfielder in those positions, you can maybe have somebody sitting there and then they don't get the opportunities.
They do have one. He is playing.
But it is still possibly a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. And just overall, they are just not good. But that falls on Tony Docherty's shoulders overall. And it's maybe the last 3 second-half goals, maybe not because of the back three, more just because of, like I said, he just can't seem to organise the defence. He needs to, in American sports, even basketball, weirdly, you have defensive coordinators. Now, you think in a sport like basketball, you wouldn't necessarily need that because it's a game like football, it flows. I think Tony Docherty needs to find a defensive specialist to come in for the end of the season.
Get Mark McGeehan.
Do you know what? Bring in Derek McInnes because he's about to get the chop. And what a link between the first two games.
I can't believe we're not going to talk about fucking Simon Murray's first goal. What a fucking goal it is! It's such a unique, cool goal.
We can talk about so many things for this game, Tony. There's just not enough
to be
time.
able to manufacture that was just when I first saw it, I was like, I don't know how he's managed that. It's such a cool, weird goal, unique.
That's another thing to be worried about them because Simon Murray pulled up injured at the end. Docherty says he doesn't know what the injury is. He says he was struggling, but Murray wanted to play on, and then obviously he went full throttle trying to score that goal, and nearly does score at the end. Which would have been a winner to Dundee. Well, possibly
I'm not too sure.
Possibly a winner.
Making a lot of assumptions.
It would have got them a point.
Yeah. Aye, because Gary was saying that they've just been pumping him through the Jags on his knee for the entire season. So I don't know how true that is, but
so if he's done any damage, oh no, that's a bad situation because they're going to stop scoring goals.
Yeah. And they'll certainly keep conceding them.
Yes, they will. But before you ruined my perfect link there,
sorry.
If Tony Docherty does need some help, then he could call up his old pal Derek McInnes, who previously used to be able to organise a good defence. I don't have as much evidence of that recently, but who knows, maybe with some new players and fresh surroundings he might be able to do it because he is circling the drain right now after Killie were beaten 5-1.
You simply can't get beat 5-1 off St Mirren. You just simply can't get. You just a result.
5-0 down as well.
yeah.
And the last St Mirren goal still coming with 20 minutes to go. So the score of this one, Boyd Munns opened the scoring very early on. Roland Adua then netted from the penalty spot. This was inside the first 10 minutes. Got to half time, still 2-0. Boyd Munns and O'Hara then doubled the advantage in the second half before Declan John grabbed a fifth. And Bruce Anderson got a late consolation for Killie. This was a bit of a capitulation from Killie in the second period and not something you really expect to see from a Derek McInnes side, and why a lot of Killie fans are looking at this and thinking, right, this is enough. This just isn't working anymore. And they play Motherwell next. Motherwell at home, and then they've got Celtic away before the split. If they don't beat Motherwell, in fact, if they get a draw, I think he'll cling on. But if they lose to Motherwell, that could be it.
I don't think they'll sack him. I think they'll think that he can reset in the summer and they'll try and get away with it. And think that he can go again, similar to what he'd done, when he kept them up the first season. It wasn't a great season, but he done pretty well considering he basically didn't sign anyone. He was just basically letting them run out all their contracts.
Yeah, because all the players in the Championship season were on 2-year deals.
So he basically just held that together, and then they were able to go again. I think they could do that again, and they'll be caught in this weird situation where Kilmarnock will think that maybe Derek McInnes is probably the best manager they can get. That I think that there will be that sort of feeling, because think about Derek McInnes and he's been getting criticised and he deserves to be criticised, but really, if you really think about it, this is his second bad season as a manager over a decade period.
Yeah,
really,
probably.
His last season at Aberdeen where it really went shit and he couldn't score a goal.
Yeah, one goal in 9 games. Well, I've always said 1 goal in 9 games was a perfectly reasonable sackable offence.
Yeah, definitely. And And then we've got this season. So you're really thinking over a decade period, 2 bad seasons. That's really hard to come by for anyone. So I think Kilmarnock will, rightly or wrongly, I'm not saying it's the right decision, but I think they will just want to, they'll just want to hang on for as long as they possibly can to let them go again. That's what I think they'll want to do.
I think this game was, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I think the pressure from the fans could just be too much for the Killie board to stick by them. But I think the Killie board...
We want them to get relegated by air. That's what we need. That's what we all want.
That is the narrative demands.
We've got a narrative there, and it's all, and it's just fun as well because it's like Kilmarnock have always been like patting Ayer's head. It feels like for the entire history. It feels like Ayr have never been better than Kilmarnock, like ever. And obviously Kilmarnock are the bigger club, so it would be funny for like the one time the comeuppance couldn't be more. It couldn't be a worse comeuppance.
And Killie's record in recent years has been relatively shit against Ayr when you compare consider the fact that they're typically in different divisions, and as you say, Killie are the bigger club. But for this game, it was kind of a microcosm of a lot of Killie's problems this season, both in terms of player form and McInnes himself. So again, it's a change in formation. Again, it's a different midfield pairing. Again, he messes with the defence. He's been doing that so much this really campaign. Like part of it has been. I
don't know where Ndaba plays.
Yeah,
simply when someone asks me about it, I just don't know what he does, what position he's meant to play.
But part of it has been forced in by injury, and also the fact that earlier in the season they had 7 players red carded, and that's
kind of their own fault.
But I'm talking from McInnes' point of view. That's going to mean you're going to have to change it up. But if you look at this from the Hibs game, they didn't play that well against Hibs, but you got a point, and that point can maybe be the start of something. So for the next game, why not play a team that's pretty similar? Instead, the centre midfield 2 against Hibs was Ndaba and Brad Lyons. Then in this game, they're playing right back and left back. And instead, it's Liam Donnelly and Liam Polworth in the middle of the park, neither of whom have played well this season. There's a number of players who
not a lot of legs in there when you're going up against, very specifically, a midfield trio, which we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, saying that this seems to be the only period where St Mirren have actually been able to get those 3 on the pitch, and there's a nice balance for them. But there's O'Hara and Phillips, especially, are rangy, energetic, aggressive players. That seems, when you look at them, like attribute-wise, it seems like a mismatch.
Yeah, and McCrory wasn't great for a couple of the goals. Everybody knows I'm not a fan of Robbie McCrory. I think he's been better this season than I expected, but still, like when we done the top 10 goalkeepers, he wasn't in it. I had him at number 10. I think on the evidence this past weekend, I would drop him down to 11th. This is not a good Scottish Premiership season for goalkeepers. To not
really
be to even.
I'm starting to think Jordan Smith is better than everyone.
Even to be 10th is terrible.
Yeah.
Like, that's not good. So they're struggling at goalkeeper. Lewis Mayo he's one of a few players who's regressed badly this season. He's the one that kind of makes the least sense, I would say, because like Marley Watkins, he's regressed quite a bit. He's really just ineffective now. He's only scored one goal.
An old man.
He's only scored 1 goal since October, I think. But yeah, you're right. He's an old man. There's a few others that have just like I say, Polworth and Donnelly, who like,
as I said, that just doesn't sound good.
Yeah, and they've always.
It's like they're both as a pairing, it's like they have the same weaknesses. So there's not a balance in there. They're both like very similar players almost. And
they've had periods in the past where they've had terrible runs of form. So the fact that they regressed was not a surprise by anybody's stretch. But Mayo's still young, and he was great for Killie for a couple of seasons, and you just thought I was going to continue. Like Killie fans were talking about him as a future Scotland player, but he's been poor, and that was they kind of analysed it on sports scene as if it was kind of like, I'm not sure about how much contact, maybe a bit harsh, blah blah. It's still a ridiculous tackle to make. Just do it. Let Iungo go back, like go down the side and see if he can outpace you and see if he can get a cross in, because he's still got to.
You definitely don't need to commit. You definitely don't need to stretch.
And like I say, he was isolated on Iunga a lot of times. They did a good job of highlighting that on Sports Night with Stuart Kettlewell that did it, that Iunga was pulling out a lot. And I think that's also a case of having Lyons at right back, and his positioning might not be great. He might not know how to kind of tuck in as much to protect his centre half. But even being isolated on Jonah Iunga, feels like last season that's a assignment that Lewis Mayo wins.
Yeah. Well, you thought like you were thinking about Mayo being like one of the best sort of defenders outside the old firm. I would be thinking last year. I mean, I think you thought about Kilmarnock is that they had like too many. They couldn't fit them all in. Their defenders. You thought and you think most of them would move to another team and probably play. Like all 4 of their centre halves would probably play, but now it's like. But this is what maybe the point you're making earlier. It does start to look poisonous because it's like no one's doing. We know these are good players, and they're all playing badly at the same time.
As for St Mirren, I mean, what a result to get to kind of ignite your hopes of reaching the top 6, especially when they've got each of the 2 bottom teams in their next 2 games. I believe they are away to Dundee next weekend, and then they are home to St Johnstone to finish it up. So certainly within the hunt, especially if Hearts Dundee United ends up being like a draw next weekend. Like that's obviously a huge game in the battle with Dundee United. Oh, in fact, Dundee United have pretty much made it.
Dundee United have made it, I think. There's only one spot left, I think.
Well, a draw would be great for them anyway, because it means that the Hearts will be catchable for St Mirren. If Hearts get a victory against United, it might... Well, it depends. We'll see how it happens. Anyway, I'm tying myself on knots here. But like, just talk about their performance. So I've highlighted the Junga. First half especially, he was huge. Second half, he was also quite involved in things. He had a good game. He started to...
Yeah, we thought he was finished, eh? We thought we'd never see a Junga back. But he's really starting to put it together again.
But also, speaking of putting it back together, 2 players who also... Sorry if anybody could hear my cat scampering around in the background. They're having fucking the mental half hour. And great timing for it, having basically been asleep all afternoon. But speaking of players putting it back together, first at Mirren, the 2 standouts I thought for this one were Mark O'Hara and Caelan Boyd-Munce, both getting on the score sheet. Boyd-Munce scored twice. O'Hara has been getting back to his best the last couple of months after it was last season he struggled. This season he's been better, but he's kind of been slowly making his way back to the level where Chick Young was saying he was a young player who should be in the Scotland squad. And this one, his passing was excellent. He kind of rarely put a foot wrong, always seemed to find a player in a St Mirren jersey. And he just looked like he was playing with a real spring in his step, which was not easy because that pitch was sodden and heavy. And it was surprising we got actually such a kind of entertaining game out of it due to that. But I think
Telfer was certain it was going to be an absolute fucking stink fest.
Yes. 6 goals instead.
Yeah, when I watched The View for the Terrace on Friday night, but you're quite when you're saying O'Hara, you can pretty much say the same thing about Boyd-Munce. It's like Boyd-Munce has pretty much always been rated. I think everyone knows he's a good player and he's a unique player in that St Mirren team, and he allows them to be more than sort of like Robinson's fucking smash boys. He allows them to be a bit more than that. But he tailed off a fair bit during periods of this season as well.
It was the start of the season. He had an injury, and then he started the season with an injury. They also had the European games, which didn't help matters. That seemed like the kind of the combination of the 2 of those things, playing poorly because he was carrying something, and the game's coming thick and fast, and missing some seemed to kind of knock him off his stride, knock his confidence, and he just didn't really fit into the team. Like the way they were playing, they were going a bit more back to front because of Olusanya, and they did St Mirren did play the ball through the midfield a bit more than we expect from them in this game, and that's because they weren't just trying to get over the top of the defence for Olusanya to run in behind. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, because he was missing for this one through suspension. I think he will go back in because Edu's just not a forward, and if you play Mandron with a Junga, it's just a bit too similar, and also there's just a tendency to go long there anyway because you've got 2 big guys up front. But that meant that they're playing through the midfield a bit more. But also, now that they've gone back and now that they've kind of settled on O'Hara and Phillips, who I think at times this season were part of a 3-4-3, and that makes perfect sense because both of them can kind of go forward and back.
Absolutely, yeah. They've got the physicals for it.
But to have them 2 and then Boyd-Munce, then that means that you could get O'Hara, and like I say, O'Hara was good on the ball in this game, but we know he's a good kind of vertical type of player as well. We certainly know Killian Phillips is like that. I always had to catch myself. I was like, oh no, I actually said his name right for a change. I didn't call him Calvin. so yeah, you've got the 2, and then Boyd-Munce is the sitter, and he was great in this one just with not playing it, as he often does to be fair, not playing it sideways, not playing it safe, being aggressive with his play, moving the ball forward consistently, helping to fight in the midfield, and also, as you saw, having a pop from distance. And
he's
final player
got,
mention.
he's got that in his locker. I think he could score more goals.
Yeah.
To be honest, boy.
And final player to mention just before we move on, Declan John as well. I think he's starting to look like a really good signing, and that was
didn't make the terraces.
Didn't qualify.
Under 1,000 minutes.
Yep. I mean,
I love how you don't actually tell people when you post it the sort of rules and regulations.
Oh no, I did underneath. I don't know.
Oh right, did you?
I don't know immediately.
I thought you just letting people just go off on one. I thought
well, they probably really can't.
I mean,
That's their fault for not reading the tweet directly underneath it. I posted it as a thread.
My favourite is 99% of the people going fucking mental don't even listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
With the explanation for all of it. That's the whole point. We actually explain ourselves.
I don't understand this list. Have you listened to it? No. Well, there you go.
Well, I'm doing it. I'm doing the bloody centre halves tomorrow, haven't I?
Yes, you are. Yeah, I'll need to.
I'll be Rocky Bashiri number 1, Jack Iredale number 2. Cheers, up the road.
Nay Hearts cunts.
Nay Hearts cunts because they're fucking shit.
Well, the only Hearts defenders that are fit or don't meet the 1,000-minute criteria, so they might not be. Anyway, let's move on to our third game. Aberdeen 4, Motherwell 1. Another good game of football. Callum Slattery opening the scoring for Motherwell very early on, but quickly Alfie Dorrington equalising for the Dons. Leighton Clarkson then putting him ahead with a terrific strike. Kevin Nisbet scoring a header before adding an incredible fourth goal in injury time.
Weird trajectory of the ball. I thought it took a deflection.
Kevin Nisbet Toure, 7 goals in 8 games. He's back into form, and just want to say something. I always say this. He hadn't scored for ages, and then he scored against Dunfermline. Now, a lot of times when you score against his teams, like you can often say, like, oh, who cares? He scored against X team. That's not going to get them back on track. But sometimes, especially for a forward, you just need to see the ball hit the back of the net. And since then, he's been on a tear.
And the thing about Nisbet is that when he's at his best, he's one of the best strikers in the league. He's one of the most rounded strikers in the league. He can play with his back to goal. He can play in a 2. He can play up front by himself. And one thing I've always liked about Nisbet is he's got like an array of finishes. Like he can score all types of goals, and he's thing I like about Nisbet as well is he's a really measured striker. Everything he does, like when he finishes, it's all very deliberate, and he normally he tries to be extremely accurate. He's not a guy who normally just he likes to side foot the ball. And the thing is, if you're getting him fit and he's good, I think Aberdeen would probably struggle to get a better striker than that. Yeah. If he's at the level he was his last season at Hibs and what he's been in the last sort of 6 weeks at Aberdeen, if you're getting that Nisbet, it's actually a no-brainer to sign him, really.
What I liked about this game from Aberdeen as well was their midfield too. So
Clarkson and Palversa, deep lying playmakers, really. The two of them in there, I quite like it. A lot of football in there.
I talked about this. After the Queen's Park game, and I thought it worked well in that one. And I said that the challenge is that defensively strong enough to play in other matches? And in this one, Aberdeen controlled a lot of the game, and they were a big reason for that. However, they did still give up some chances that didn't quite reflect how I felt the game went overall in terms of possession and territory. And I think that was maybe part of the reason, but a Motherwell team at home is maybe the type of game you can get away with that. Away from home, you probably want a Sivert Nielsen in there, somebody who's a bit more defensively solid to block the opposition. But when you're this game, and Leighton Clarkson, in fact, both of them, but Clarkson especially was a big reason for this. When you're playing at such quick tempo and you're getting the ball forward quickly and you're playing through the opposition team, this was just perfect for them in this match. And it made the Aberdeen team a really good team to watch in this game.
Yeah, because the two of them can like switch the play and they ping, so they're constantly stretching the opposition. From what I read, like Clarkson was probably man of the match in this one.
I only watched the first 60 minutes, but from what I watched, I would say so.
And you're probably thinking this for the bit I watched a bit. I watched some extended highlights of this, so I know a bit. Like probably Aberdeen's most complete performance since that first 10 games. It was quite unusual because they normally seem to have a period, Aberdeen, where they're on the ropes in a game. Like no matter how well they play in a game, there always seems to be like a 15-20 minute period where they look all at fucking sea. Not the regard, and this wasn't, maybe apart from a period at the very start of the second half, but Aberdeen seemed to actually have control, and it was deliberate, and they for a whole match for a change. And worrying for the rest of us is maybe that Aberdeen start to find form and find their feet and find control again.
Well, certainly for a team facing them in a semi-final.
Yeah, so I forget you're obviously playing them. What was it, 2 weeks?
I'm only hoping that the loser mentality from their fans on Twitter about how hard it is to get a train to Glasgow for the game seeps through to the team. I'm just hoping that comes from the stands out the team. They walk out the pitch, they see the big empty spaces because everybody's too busy moaning about it on Twitter, and then their heads drop. That's the kind of best hope I've got at this point in time, because they certainly were clicking into gear in this one. Even Okols played well.
Oh, even Okols plays well. What were your feelings about Shinnie at left back?
He did have he wasn't great for the Sparrow chance, but in terms of getting forward, because it's funny, in the midfield, I think he started to show his age in terms of the busted runs that he used to do, when he used to just kind of, I was going to say slalom, he never slalom. He would just get the ball, get the head down and just charge through opposition teams. He doesn't really do that as much anymore, but he was doing it from left back, and that's what I've been impressed with him when he's been out there. And I think him being out there has also kind of helped Okols kind of get his...
Well, it's an organiser as well. Someone because Okols looks like maybe a guy who maybe needs talked through because he's chaotic.
Final word on Aberdeen before we got Motherwell. Pap Gay at the number 10. He was pish. He was pish. So I still get it. I know you're right in that maybe he's better on the left. Like, he's certainly not better up front, but maybe he's better on the left. Again, usual, whenever he got the ball and there was kind of players around him and there was a bit of space, there wasn't much space, he struggled because his touch just isn't there. And he gives it away far too easily. But I could also even see from this game when he was crap and he gave the ball away constantly.
Could have got sent off.
Well, the Aberdeen fans did like him because he halved Andy Halliday and got away with it. I'm still not seeing any other replay. I watched the highlights. I watched it back. There was none shown on the broadcast as well. I've seen no other replay of that challenge. So I actually can't make up my mind about it, because I know he does scissor him a bit. But I think if the first leg goes in front and doesn't really make much contact, then it's definitely not a red card. If he does catch him with that front leg, and then there's a scissor, then it's a red card. But there doesn't seem to be any definitive angle that I've seen so far, which would tell us that, which I find quite strange.
From what I read, Hardy, the referee, had an absolute abysmal game.
Well, there was one moment where he stopped Aberdeen counter-attack. It was Shayden Morris got fouled, but he rode the challenge, immediately bounced up and had so much room to run in front of him. And for whatever reason, the referee, it was right in front of him. It must be so easy to tell that Morris was bouncing back up, just stopped the play, didn't play advantage. Ridiculous.
Because I think there was a lot, for both teams, for what I read, that I asked Tom about it because I saw it online. So I messaged Tom about it, and he said that there was periods where it actually felt like he just didn't know the rules, which not great.
Not great for a referee. Not great for a referee.
For the ref in terms of his write-up. But
continue on with Gay, though. So, yeah, it was poor in terms of the amount of times he gave the ball away, but there were still these moments where it's like, oh, yeah, I do still get it why he's playing there, because he just does a wee drop of the shoulder, a wee kind of shimmy that players do where you take a touch with one foot and you immediately play it off the other and then you're away. He was often then fucking up, though, by making a poor decision after that, but I was like, yeah, I can get it, because when he doesn't make those mistakes and he does the right thing, and he still nearly scored as well. And he's so good for them in the air, and they don't really have anybody to do that when he's not there. I know Nisbet scored a header, but in general, he is dominant in there, and it really helps him when he's in there in that regard. So for all his faults, I can see why he plays. The only downside is that if the crowd just see him giving the ball away most games, don't appreciate his kind of chaos factor, then they're going to get on his back, and then his confidence will just drastically drop off again. So he might need to come in and out at points just for his own sake.
And Motherwell, it just feels like Callum Slattery, and that's it.
So Motherwell, this game was surprisingly open and stretched for a lot of it. And I think that's just the way that Motherwell are now set up to play now. So the good news for that is that they'll be better to watch, and their fans won't be as miserable even when they're winning games as they were under Stuart Kettlewell.
When they bullied Kettlewell.
Yes, when they bullied him out of a job. Get back to go Cantona and everybody. But you're unlikely, well, it depends. It depends how the team you're playing are feeling at the time. But with Aberdeen getting their act together, you probably had more chance with a Kettlewell style of play than a Vimmer style of play in this one, because there was just a lot of space for Aberdeen in which to operate. And it's an Aberdeen team that do have their tails up a little bit now again.
Mm-hmm.
If you'd played them a few weeks ago at Pittodrie when they were in the middle of that terrible run, yeah, you probably, like, this would be the style of play to go and to go for the jugular and to try and yeah, to just kind of take advantage of that low confidence. But it did. I think they could have played in Aberdeen's hands a bit in this one. And just a couple of players to highlight. Ellery Balcom. I said it on the Goalkeepers podcast. Like, if that guy can learn how to catch a ball, bloody hell, what a goalie he'll end up being. But it's
anyone.
It's a bit of a... Well, most goalies know how to catch the ball, Tony.
If you can do the fundamentals of a goalkeeper, you'll be a good goalkeeper. Right, cheers.
His shot-stopping ability is superb, but he's
got really good reflexes. He's sort of like he can make match-winning saves that a lot of goalies can't do.
That first goal, there's nobody anywhere near him. Catch the fucking ball. And instead he punches it and it comes out in Dorrington. Dorrington, it's a good strike. It does take a deflection, but
I cannot accept this Dorrington guy. I forget he
Alfie
plays
Dorrington.
Every time it comes out, I'm like, oh, aye, this guy. I feel like even though I've watched him, I've never seen him play. So every time I hear his name, it's one of those, you know, it just happens someday. It's like you've got a blind spot about a player. Every time I was like, oh, aye. Like, if someone asked me to name Aberdeen's player, there's no way I would have named him. There was no way I would ever name him. And then when it came up, I was in my head like, is this his debut? No, he's played plenty of games.
Both centre-halves played well. Matt's Noster, the other one, they're I think Noster, from what I've seen of them so far, which isn't too much, but for what I've seen of them so far, Noster seems like the one that's a bit more cultured and Dorrington's a bit more do the basics kind of thing. But it seems like
It sounds like an English cider.
An English IPA of a pint of Dorrington, please.
Yeah, like absolute shit. Kind of pint you would get in fucking Alton Towers.
Another player highlight, Dominic Thompson. I think you've said this before. He could run, he could cross. Not sure if he could do literally anything else.
All right, good for him.
Bad for him, I would say.
Sparrow seems to be doing all right in that right wing back role. They seem to be
fine.
a fan of that in that one.
We've got a time limit, so we need to move on.
All right, okay.
Talk about fucking Tom Sparrow.
What do you want to do? Who are we going about?
Right, let's go to the game on Sunday in Dingwall. Ross County 0, Dundee United 1. Ross Graham with the only goal of the game.
Huge goal. Felt like a massive goal.
Yes.
I was annoyed, I'll be brutally honest.
And it was getting to the point as well at that point in the game where I was thinking, I think County might win this, because this is starting to feel like a cursed game for Dundee United, because they were impressive in many, many ways in this game. They had a patchwork defence going into this one. Adebayoga was unavailable. Gallagher was injured. They've not replaced Kevin Holt, so they're a man down in defence anyway. So it was just Ross Graham is the only available experience.
And they put Savage at centre-half. And I think he's done really, really well, did he not?
Yes, he did. He did really well at centre-half. And that was something that United fans were concerned about, because when they first signed him, they played him there in the Premier Sports Cup, I believe, and apparently, I never saw any of the games, but apparently he was dreadful. He was probably the better defensively. I felt that Graham was maybe a little bit too keen to come out and contest at times and left a bit of space behind him, but Savelj, or Save, I guess Save is kind of pronounce it, was always there to mop things up. But I would maybe give Graham the nod over the two, like in terms of actually neither of them were man of the match, because I'll get to man of the match in a second. But in terms of impressive performances, because Graham was the most influential player in the opposition penalty area, because holy fuck, the Dundee United attack was guff for the majority of this one. It got better late in the game, but there was so many opportunities to create a chance that broke down in the final third. None of Strain, Ferry, Middleton, Traporowski, or Sibbald supporting for the kind of most advanced midfield spot helped at all in that regard. Dalby tried his best, but he can only do so much, Dalby. You just want him to finish off chances rather than do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was a United fan just on their forum or something a couple of weeks ago, I saw complaining that when you have Traporowski on one side and you have Middleton on the other side, they're both playing on the wing, which is their weaker foot. So it means that they come inside all the time, and that's an issue. And I thought, it's not really that much of an issue, because they played three at the back for a lot of the season. So you've got Ferry going on the outside of one side and Strain going on the outside of the other. So that actually provides a bit of balance for your team.
Yeah.
However, they were playing with a 4-3-3 in this one. So it was like any time, Traporowski especially, and Ross County knew he was going to do it. You could actually see the Ross County defenders making their movements before Trapanovsky did, because I thought, right, this is the point that he's going to dart inside, and he just came into a wall time and time again, and he would not go down the flank to try to do something else. Middleton tried to do it on the other side on occasion, but he came up against a very good performance from Ellie Campbell, who I felt was comfortably Ross County's best player in this one. And I thought that Goodwin had lost his marbles again, like he did towards the end of the Dundee.
He lobs at every single player he ever owned on the park.
Yes, so they ended up with a team that was...
Jimmy Calderwood, basically. Everyone up front.
He changed it to a 4-2-4, which, yeah, you're right, because they did have attacking fullback. So, yeah, it was pretty much a 2-4-4 with a front four of Middleton on one side, going over to the left, Rory Payton playing right midfield. I was like, oh, this has got disaster written all over it. And Louis Moult alongside...
slow as fuck.
But Louis Moult alongside Dalby. But the reason why it worked is because the best player on the park was Ross Docherty. I thought Docherty was excellent in this one. He's just so influential to the United team.
And keep him fit, eh?
Yeah, that's the problem.
He was always... It was the same in the championship season, that the team is just miles better when Docherty's in it. It's miles better.
He's just such an intelligent player. Like, he's calm, he gets his foot on the ball, he gets his head up, he makes the right passes. He doesn't do anything spectacular, but he just does the right things to keep United in possession and progressing them up the pitch. And he's not one of these midfielders that can do that and is also like a waif in terms of the defensive side. He can also kind of muck in as well. So you're right, he's so important to that team. And it meant that because even though they were...
It feels weird, like, if you look at that, obviously, he's not played loads in the top flight, has he?
This is his first season.
Yeah, so it's like, seems bizarre that someone is like one of the most important players for a team playing in the top six. How old is he?
30, I think.
Like one of the most important players for a team that's in the top six, and no one's ever given him a shot. It just seems bizarre. I think, but everyone has to go, maybe we've overlooked that.
So United dominated the midfield for the majority of this game, and I'll get to a reason why in terms of County in a second. And there was a possibility with going to a two-man midfield that then that was no longer be the case. But Docherty was just playing that well that they still just had a grasp of the midfield, and they just, after they brought on the extra good players, they still needed Graham to score for the corner in which to get the only goal of the game. But it did mean that they were a lot more threatening around the final third because there was just a better talent on the park and just more attacking talent for them to go and win the game.
Campbell's now a sub. Campbell is now a Dundee United sub. Great.
If you could... I did write it down, but I've decided not to go with it. I was going to say, if you were being churlish, you could say the midfield was a lot better because Alan Campbell wasn't playing.
Aye. It's really not worked out, him and Payton.
I think you could... Like, if you had him alongside Docherty and... Like, with Savelge at the team for this one, if you had him alongside, like, instead of Stevenson, if you had Campbell, but I think it was good to take Campbell at the team for his own safety. Yeah, for his own safety. So, very quick word on County, because there really wasn't much to say about this performance. County were shockingly bad, like, going forward, like, anemic. They just did nothing. They had Samuels and Phillips up top. Of course, Don Cowie's just pissing around with these forwards again.
Yeah, it does my fucking head in. You're not good enough to do this. You have to, like White or Hale is that they're not perfect, but they have an attribute that you can play into, that you can work around and you can use it. You can't just play guys who run up front. You're nowhere near good enough to do that. You need either a guy who can head it into the net or a guy who shoots early and scores. These guys won't score. They just won't do it.
Aye, Phillips did nothing. Samuel's done...
two strikers who won't score.
Aye, Samuel's done his usual of, like, being a bit of a pest and disruptive, but not actually doing anything in the final third. Kind of Alex Samuel's all over the top flight. And also they had Chilvers and Nisbet in the midfield three, and we've spoken about this already. It's just not defensively sound enough, and that was why United had just such a grasp of that area. But I did say the defence played well. I mentioned Campbell already. Lapata was really good. Wright and Harmon done their jobs defensively, but again, they were playing wing backs and they didn't do anything going up the other end of the pitch. One of my favourite moments of the game was George Harmon from left wing back darted inside and then played a reverse pass out to the wing. It's like, you play 3-5-2, you're the wing back. Who are you playing that ball to? Yourself.
reverse into himself. Flip reverse it.
Right, so we've got 2 games left. Tony, we shall start at Easter Road, where Hibs beat St Johnstone 3-0. Goals from Junior Hoylett, Martin Boyle in the first half, and then Kieran Bowie won and converted a penalty late on to make it 3-0. 15 unbeaten in the league. I don't have anything to say about this one, so I'm just going to let you go. Firstly, do you want to start with St Johnstone, actually? Because I think that was what you were talking about coming out of Saturday.
Honestly, man, that was the easiest game of football, I think. No jeopardy, no worries. Very unusual. So I'm very used to, obviously, being a Hibs fan. You're always feeling that things are going to go tits up. There was not a moment in this game that I thought St Johnstone were going to do anything. And I always find it funny when a team plays the style St Johnstone do and don't create any chances. Because the whole point if you're playing is that you don't play percentages because you pass for the back, which means that when you get into the last third, you'll have numbers and you'll be able to play in it and you'll make better quality when you go into the last third. But to see a team do that and offer absolutely nothing, it was just like, can we have the ball now? Thank you. Cheers. They basically played the whole game in the middle part of their own half, and the game was just, when are Hibs going to win it back? We're just waiting for that to happen. You saw it for the goals, really, and it was just amazing. Just like they're just going to give us goals. Great. Like, we're not going to have to play well. Like Hoylett, it's an absolutely brilliant goal, and it's good because you're going to play a team at the bottom of the league. It might get stuffy later on, and for him to do that really early just completely fucked them. And it was Dodo, that Curtis, man. No. I don't want to be overly rude, but I think he might be the worst player in the league.
He's 19 years old, man.
Is he? Oh, shit, I didn't realise that.
He's a loanee.
All right, where's he on loan from?
Sheffield United.
You're not going to get a game there. I can assure you. I didn't realise he was so young, but every time I've watched him, I've thought he's really poor. His crossing's terrible. When he gets into that, he gives the ball away a lot, and there's the unfair bit as well is that you're 19, you come into a team that's like really is poor. Obviously, it's a poor team, really, because obviously that's why they're bottom of the league, and then you're being asked to play in that fashion. It really, like, it's really hard. I feel like for a player like that when you're young and you come in and you're going to have to take huge amounts of responsibility for a shit team. And you're not ready to do that. So like it sort of magnifies how inexperienced and not ready he is, if you know what I mean, because they're constantly giving him the ball and he's under immense pressure all the time. But I thought St Johnstone were fucking minging. They just didn't do anything for an hour and a half.
I see Valakari is still trying to make Jonathan Svedberg a thing as well.
I'm going to maybe stick up for him slightly and say that he was maybe one of their better players.
The amount of times you said maybe there is not making that a compliment.
I'm getting mixed up, actually. I think it was Sprangler who was like one of their better. And when I'm saying that... That
sounds more likely, because Svedberg got substituted as well, so...
and I mean that's damning with faint praise when I'm saying it, because I was quite shocked at quite how bad they were. It was just such an easy game in football. I like the way. What's been really fun about Gray is that he's all through this run. It's like he's able to catch everyone on form at different times. You know, he seems to get it right. When he, like Hoylett and Campbell being the example here, it's like he seemed to call it the right time when to rotate and start using Hoylett. And same with Levitt, he always seems to get that right when he turns and makes subtle changes to the lineup for maybe, but it's not like for one game. He's done it with Mariah Welsh where he played like 5 games. Levitt's done it now. Hoylett comes in, he just always seems to get that right. It's like he's timing. It seems to be impeccable in reading when the team needs like a slight freshen up and a slight change to make sure that basically whoever we're playing against can't get too familiar almost with Hibs. Because obviously he's done the changes he's done now. As I said, I think when I spoke a couple of weeks ago, it's obviously because Nicky Cadden's not playing that he decided he needed to have more football in the middle, because obviously we couldn't rely on sort of one of our main chance creation. You're going to have to do some more, and that's obviously why he goes with Hoylett, because Hoylett's obviously a better footballer than Campbell. He's more likely to create a chance than Josh Campbell. Josh Campbell's probably more likely to get on the end of a chance, but Hoylett's a better player.
It kind of changes the way you play as well, because with Campbell, that means you're likely to go more direct. And but when you've got Kukurevich up front, then you can play with Hoylett because he's your direct option. And the same with Bowie as well.
Yeah, I feel like with Kukurevich, I actually feel like, even though he's young, I feel like his injuries have caught up on him.
Oh, really?
He's already looks like he's just nowhere near the player he's lumbering about. You know, he looks like a yard off compared to everyone else.
I was surprised he started instead of Bowie.
Yeah, but Bowie, they're just trying to look after him. Yeah. I think they're trying to be really smart and cute with Bowie, and Bowie's probably outside of the Celtic game where he had his best performance when Hibs won at Easter Road. He was absolutely brilliant in that game, and he was like a massive handful. He's probably been better when he's come off the bench than when he started, even against Hearts. Bowie wasn't absolutely brilliant in that game. Both him, like when you before the game, you were thinking about Elton and Bowie being a bit, and both of them were pretty poor.
Yeah,
but Gray went with, unusually for after the international break, he played Miller and Boyle, which is the first time he's done that after they've been away for Australia, and they both played both games when they were away. So that says a lot. Like Miller, I thought Miller was probably one of the better players. I think Miller's come on leaps and bounds because he's got so much going for him. Miller, he's like so built. He's almost like exactly the shape and his attributes and his physicals is exactly what you choose to play in this league specifically. And Gray's done a really, really good job with Miller, because like playing in that right centre half role, I think it really suits him because you get to see more of his aerial ability. Obviously, in that area as well, and Boyle just
also hides his masks his pish at football ability a bit more as well. To be a right-sided centre half rather than a fullback or wing back.
Yeah, where there's a lot more to him. He needs to drive, he needs to dribble a lot more,
and also as well, he does have that still ability to charge forward. His best thing is like. Yes, obviously I was being a bit intentionally mean about him there, but he does have his uses in terms of an attacking sense, but it is about getting ahead of steam up and using those athletic abilities and getting into the opposition box. And that's the thing. You can do that from right centre-back as well, and there's also an extra layer of it, because if you're coming from that area, that's not something that a lot of teams kind of game plan for, and you can then be not only a kind of chaos factor, but also kind of an interloper on top of that.
Yeah, and you can pick and choose. Yeah. When you're going to be involved. But then Martin Boyle, another goal, 15 goals this season, now on for his best season ever.
We all said he was finished though in the season.
This seems absolutely mad. That's like no one's benefited from the shape change more than him. Obviously, him and Rocky Bashiri probably are the players that have benefited the most. And just Boyle, it's just absolutely perfect, because his football intelligence is so much better now than what it was 5 years ago. It's just so perfect playing him in that role up front, because he just gets to do what he wants, because he can drop off. Like, he doesn't always, and he can drift wide. He can choose where he wants to go on the shoulder. And it just looks like a nightmare, because whoever he's playing against, they don't really know how to deal with him, because they don't know. He's just doing what he wants, and he's picking and choosing. Right, so it's like you can't just get a man on him, if you understand what I mean. Everyone in the team's having to take, because he's drifting about, everyone's having to take turns at dealing with it, and he can sort of go around bullying players. He can find them and getting their weaknesses. And as I said, suddenly you can go in behind when he feels like he can drop or pick up the ball. He can still drive where he wants to and dribble. And who says he's not going to hit that 100 goals before the end of the season? It'll take some doing. But Levitt has been much better since coming back into the team. He'll be hard to shift now, him and Trias, because there's a lot of football. And he was saying that Trias, obviously he went all the way to Australia. Gray was saying after the game that he was fucked. He was saying like basically just wandering around, essentially, just like he struggled to deal with, obviously the first time he'd ever done it. And he didn't play, but doing all the time zones, he said he was pickled after the game. But Trantis was pretty good. But yeah, you'll not get more routine than that, man. It was so simple.
Speaking of routine, Celtic 3, Hearts 0 is our final game. A Maeda double either side of a Jota rebound from a Maeda header, with all goals coming in the first half.
Ruthless, man. Ruthless.
Ruthless.
That first goal is just so they're just high quality. You're going to do the through ball, perfect. Finish, perfect. And then you're fucked. And there's not another team that's going to, it'll be that cutthroat to you.
Yeah, really easy game to analyse. Just Hearts went with a 3-4-1-2 system, which looks it's the kind of latest attempt to get Shankland, Wilson, and Kabangu into.
And that seems to be the best way to get it. Celtic, really, at Rangers done it. Hibs, the game that they lost 3-0, which I think was quite similar to this. Hearts had a lot of chances from what I've heard, decent amount of chances. When Hibs lost 3-0 there at Parkhead.
Not quite as good chances as Hibs had that day, but
like Hibs got a lot of chances, so it does feel like that's the blueprint if you're going to play Celtic, is to play that specific formation. And
they want those 3 players in the team, which is something I'll get to in a second, because I'm not sure entirely that's required anymore. But Critchley was trying the diamond. It worked very well against Rangers in the first game. Did get the result, but Hearts were the better team. He should have won that. But since then, I've just not felt it's quite a good fit for the team. There are some things to like about the 3 at the back attempt to do this, which I will, like I say, I'll get to later on. But Hearts pressed Celtic very high up the park. Shankland would sit on whoever the midfielder was wanting to come short, with the forwards covering the centre-backs and full-backs. Midfielders, Benny and Devlin, would also kind of push up and just put a lot of pressure on them. And for the first 15, 20 minutes of this game, almost played entirely in Celtic's half. Nielsen with a great early chance, a good save from Cyriel, who does have to adjust to save it, but he's that close to goal. He gets a clear enough strike on it that he probably should still be scoring. I think he chooses to just concentrate on getting it on target rather than putting his foot through it. And if he puts his foot through it, he probably gives the goalie no chance. For me, it was very much a gamble, and you can see that from, like you mentioned, the opening goal, because Devlin loses McGregor, and then you played against the best team in the league with Callum McGregor back in the side. He was a big boost for Celtic. He was excellent in this one. Him and Maeda were Celtic's best 2 players. Maeda getting the nod for the fact that he almost had a hat-trick. But McGregor, his movement, his passing was just so key for Celtic in this one. I saw folk blaming Nielsen for the first goal, but I don't think there's really much to blame. It's just you're not as fast as Dyson Maeda. Like that's just a simple thing about it. I mean, is anybody in this league? It was a bit more for the second, where it was kind of more of a low block set up after Celtic had a bit of sustained pressure in the Hearts half. But the third goal was just very similar to the first as well. It's Celtic getting their way through the press, and then for that point, they could just cut you open so easily. But Hearts went to Celtic and tried to attack, missed a good chance while the game was in the balance, and Celtic were clinical at the other end, which is why I've spent the last couple of days a bit annoyed at my fellow Hearts fans. Like, it seems to be they've used it as a reason to bring up back the Critchley failure in big games. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily wrong. I was somebody that brought this up initially, of saying, like, one thing I don't like about him is, like, he struggled in those matches, and you can even kind of point to some of the European games as well. But I just think this game is irrelevant in that discussion. As Tom put in the group chat,
there's no simply that. You write the game off. We all do. There's no point pretending you don't write that result off. Of course you do.
Celtic have lost 7 league games at Celtic Park in a decade. And Hearts are actually one of only 6 teams to have beaten them in that time.
What's the point?
Hibs, who I typically think of being better at travelling to Glasgow than Hearts, they haven't won at Celtic Park in that time. Oh. Celtic away is no longer a big game for Hearts, in the same way it isn't a big game for anybody else in Scottish football.
It's a write-off.
Other than Rangers. Rangers are on the very rare occasions, like a team like Aberdeen going to Celtic earlier in the season when they're on a brilliant run, and there is talk about, could this finally be a team to actually challenge over? That's the only time that's ever a big game. The rest of the time, running them all matches like this is not a big game.
Yeah, it's finished. It's over before it starts.
Yeah.
That is the reality.
It's a depressing reality, because we know that even like less than 20 years ago, like the early days of the Romanov era, and even when it kind of died down a bit, Hearts Celtic was still a big game, and you can still count on Hearts to get a result at Celtic Park. But It's just that the gap between Celtic and everybody else has just got so much wider, and the time in between, and it's just not anymore. You played a big team, but it's not a big game. It's not how you judge your season, how you judge your players, how you judge your manager.
And then, it's pretty annoying that McInnes just turned into like Larsson.
Yeah, he's just incredible, isn't he?
And it's like they've done such a the selling the Kyogo's worked out so well and putting Maeda in, because Maeda's got tons more to his game than Kyogo has. And the main difference was that obviously Kyogo was like a master finisher. Now that Maeda's brought that, he's fucking miles better than Kyogo. He's a miles better. You know what I mean? There's so much more.
Yeah, because he contributes so much more to the game.
And he's also just fucking scoring all the goals. Like that first goal, that's a proper goal scorer's goal. It's just like you never think he's going to miss. And like rewind a year ago, you don't fancy him. But now it's like there's no question he's going to score. And like recently he scored a tap in that one where he scored the goal he scored against Hibs in the cup game. He's fucking scored on the line. You know, like following up. So he's like turned into a proper centre forward. I think someone might come and buy him.
He's still quite young, isn't he?
He's 27. So it would be, whoever's buying him is buying him his peak. So the one thing that might put someone off is that they've no sell on. But with the price that you could probably get Maeda from Celtic for, it's like threepence to a lot of teams, really. You know, like grand scale of things. You know, if someone offers 25 million or something, he will leave. You know, like they will accept that. And you just think, like in modern football terms, like he's a manager's wet dream, isn't he? Really, like they're all going to love him. Everyone, like every manager in the world is going to rate Maeda because of like what he does. He's like the fucking boring robot man. Like, you know, he is. He's like everything that they all fucking go on about, and what like. Fucking your Guardiolas and that will all fucking think he's absolutely class or whatever.
He's going to play like Fergie with always playing big games.
Absolutely, aye. And but now that he's added that ruthless streak and he's scoring all the time, I think a pretty good team, even if he was a squad player, I've started to think surely a big team, because those attributes, as I said, like managers are going to like be obsessed with. And if he's adding that and he scored lots of goals in the Champions League this season, he performed in the Champions League this season, I just think someone's definitely going to come in and buy him. I'd be really shocked if no one does.
So before we finish, just very briefly on the change in Hearts system to let's just call it a 3-5-2. The thing I really liked about it, and it's got potential to kind of kickstart Hearts a bit towards the end of the season, is the Harry Milne making his debut at left centre-back. So defensively, he was caught out a little for that third goal, but again, like we say, there was a lot of space in behind him. You're playing Celtic. He's going up against fucking Jota. It's not to be judged as to how this will work.
I think we were just talking about the whole game.
Yeah, and I don't know if he has much experience of ever played centre half. Or is this just a thing that he was slapped in there because Hearts wanted to change the formation, and McCart was out. Kent's still not back. Kingsley's still not back. Halkett was only fit enough for a place on the bench, so it was a case of kind of needs must when changing the formation. But he was bombing forward as well, and it could be a case that against some teams we could get a little bit of like a discount Tierney Robertson going on down that left side with him and Penrice. So that could be if he could do the basics at centre half, that could end up working quite well.
And obviously, like a lot of the time, Hearts are playing in games when they're on top.
Yes,
they're not good. Like so,
if you get two players down,
we'll be playing forward. You know,
if you get two players down one wing, either like kind of working in tandem in an attack or just taking turns at doing it and keeping the opposition defence on their toes, that's a good thing to have.
So you think he's going to stick with the back three, or do you think it was just for this one-off game?
So so this is a point to get to. So the reason why he's kind of playing with this is because he wants the three forwards in the team, and it does make sense. The three of Hearts' better players, and certainly have been this season. What I would say, though, is that I think it's maybe about time that James Wilson is taken out of the team for his own good for a couple of matches at least.
He's young.
Because he's played well and his all-round game has really come on in 2025. However, he's only got one goal. And we all know what forwards are like, regardless of how they play. Even forwards have said...
in his mind.
Yeah, you've spoken to forwards before who said regardless of whether the team wins or not, if they don't score, they're not happy. And I think you could see it with that chance he had, because he had all the time in which to set himself, and I think it's quite clear that there was too much time. He overthought it. He got it badly wrong. His body positioning was wrong. He misjudged it, which he shouldn't do because there was just that much opportunity to get himself right. And I think it's about time that he goes back to the bench for at least a couple of games until he gets his next goal, and then he can come back in. But we better finish up now.
Devlin being back, though, that's huge. That means you don't have to play a diamond, because Devlin can do the job of a couple of them.
Yes, that's also true as well. I wasn't a big fan of the diamond, but it'd be interesting to see if he does take Wilson out, whether it's a return to the 4-4-2, which we saw a lot of the season with Critchley with Shankly just playing off Kabangu, and whether that makes Hearts better or worse. But anyway, we need to finish up now because I'm about to join the A View for the Terrace meeting for this week's show. So make sure to tune into that when it comes out on the BBC iPlayer on Friday. But for the meantime, Tony, thank you very much for joining me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for educating me about the weekend's football.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Goodbye.